Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. On behalf of OTC Markets, we are very pleased you have joined us for the Precious Metals and Critical Minerals Conference. Our next presentation of the day is from Apollo Silver. Please note you may submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view our company's availability for a one-on-one meeting by clicking Book a Meeting in the top toolbar. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Ross McElroy, President and Chief Executive Officer of Apollo Silver, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol APGOF and on the TSXV under the symbol APGO. Welcome, Ross.
Thank you, Greg. It's a pleasure to be able to present Apollo Silver Corp today. Before we get into the presentation, I'll just start just by noting that there's forward-looking statements for disclosure purposes in this presentation. So basically, silver's been in a very attractive sector to have been involved with in 2025, with silver prices up over 90% since the beginning of the year, and the Apollo share price is up over 300% in that same time frame. While we're very impressed with that, we think that there is substantial upside opportunities there, and in fact, the story for Apollo Silver is really just beginning. Now, the company's portfolio was backed by two very strong North American silver assets, which collectively have drill-defined mineral resource estimates of over 330 million ounces of silver equivalent. The company is run by proven leaders in the industry. We're very well positioned in the strong markets, with opportunities for substantial re-rating of the share price. Now, if we look at the leaders in the company, I'll just start off with myself. I've been in the business for some 40 years. I'm a geologist, professional geologist, been involved in the mining sector and both discovery, development, and mining of several world-class deposits in precious metals and uranium as well. In fact, my most recent position was the co-founder and CEO of Fission Uranium Corp, which I sold last year for just around $1.14 billion to Paladin Energy. Now, Andrew Bowering, who's the chairman of Apollo Silver, he's also the founder of the company, and in fact is the single largest shareholder of the company, is a venture capitalist with as many years in the business as I've been in. Andy has been extremely successful in creating companies and having strong exit strategies as well. You know, been involved in successful companies in the lithium and precious metal sector, and a number of others as well. Most recently, Andy had his Prime Mining sold to Torex Gold for about $445 million earlier this fall. So you do have collectively leaders that have realized over $2 billion worth of transactions in the mining sector. We know how to move companies forward and how to get things done. Now, if we just look at the capital structure slide here for a bit, presently the share price is trading around $4.50 Canadian. We have about $31.5 million in the treasury. So we completed a financing last October. We had $26.5 million come into the treasury. So we feel we're very well positioned to begin our activities in 2026. By the way, we have no debt in the company. Institutional holdings are about 26% of the shares, and insiders have a very large stake in the game as well. Insiders holding about 16% of the company's shares. We look just on the institutional and major shareholder list. We're backed by several very impressive groups: Jupiter Asset Management, Commodity Capital AG, Prime Vest Fund, the Terra Capital Natural Resources, They've all been repeat contributors to the company. Sprott Asset Management got involved in the last financing, so they have a major position as well. Eric Sprott's been a shareholder of the company for quite some time and also participated in our last financing. And as I mentioned, Andrew Bowering has a very large position of the company as well. So high list of quality people. As far as analyst coverage goes, we are presently covered by three groups: SCP Equity Partners, based out of Toronto; Red Cloud Security, also in Toronto; and Research Capital, a Toronto-based company as well. We believe that the analyst list for Apollo Silver continues to grow. So how do we sit relative to our peers in this business? I think one of the best ways to kind of get this look is to look at an EV per ounce basis. If you look at that, as I mentioned, we've got about 334 million ounces total silver in the company's portfolios. We have a market cap of $250 million Canadian. So that on a US dollar basis, that gives us an EV value per ounce of around 50 cents per ounce US. And Canadian, that's about 75 cents or so. I think what you'll find is that as Apollo Silver continues to move forward and progress on its world-class assets, that we're going to continuously move to the right on this chart. We fully expect to be, much more in the, in the path of with valuations of at least $1 to $1.50 per silver as we continue to execute on the programs. And I think, if we gain traction down in Mexico, as we expect that we will in 2026, there's even more substantial re-rating opportunities down there. And we'll talk about our project in Mexico, Cinco de Mayo, a little bit further on in the presentation. But the key is continue to watch Apollo Silver, watch us move to the right on evaluation to be, at a much higher level on a valuation per ounce basis than we are presently. So the two projects that are the North American projects that are in the company, there's Calico project in the San Bernardino County in Southern California, and in Mexico, in the state of Chihuahua, very important silver mining state for the country. We have our Cinco de Mayo project. Cinco de Mayo is an option agreement that we have now presently sitting with Pan American, who it was the original option agreement was with Mag Silver, but Pan American bought Mag Silver in an acquisition earlier this fall. So the option agreement now sits between Apollo Silver and Pan American. For Calico in California, it's in San Bernardino, which is a very important county. It's the most pro-mining district in California. Silver, by the way, has recently been included on the U.S. critical minerals list. So that is a substantial advantage to us as well. The project itself is the second largest undeveloped primary silver deposit in the United States. We have measured and indicated resources of 125 million ounces and a further 58 million ounces in inferred silver. So collectively, adding those together, we're looking at around 183 million ounces of combined categories. There are substantial credits of other critical minerals, those being barite and zinc. And by the way, there is some gold in the deposit as well. But really, Calico is all about being driven by silver. It's a primary silver deposit. It's all about the price of silver and our ability to execute a silver operation at there. That's what's important. Cinco de Mayo, again, maybe just touching on some of the high-level points there. It is in a district that's host to some of the world's top silver deposits and operating mines. In fact, the CRD belt that our deposit occurs within is responsible for about 60% of Mexico's silver production. The federal government in Mexico is very pro-mining, and I think if you've been following the news lately, you've seen a number of permits that have been issued and given out to companies. The government wants to promote mining. They understand the importance of mining to the overall economy. So we feel we're going to be in the right environment, the right jurisdiction to be able to move this project forward as well. The flagship property, which is our Cinco de Mayo, has a historic inferred resource of 154 million ounces of silver equivalent at a very high grade of 385 gram per ton silver equivalent. The challenge for us and the opportunity is really to unlock the social license at Cinco de Mayo. There is presently a restriction for access on the ground. This restriction was imposed by the local Ejido community, basically the local farmers in the area put a restriction on access agreement. We're in the process of negotiating and conversations with the community. We feel there's definitely an opportunity in the near-term horizon for us to be able to create an access agreement, and that will unlock the project. And for us, we feel that'll be a substantial potential for a re-rating of the share price. So just to quickly focus on Calico in California, as I mentioned, combined categories of mineralization, we're looking at 183 million ounces. So the bulk of that is measured and indicated. That's 125 million ounces. So that puts Calico at the second largest undeveloped primary silver project in the USA. So an extremely large, extremely important asset. And now with silver being on the critical list, we feel that the winds are in our favor here to be able to move this project forward. Just to talk a little bit on the jurisdiction itself. So we're in the county of San Bernardino, California. It's an extremely important mining district, fourth most important in the United States with respect to mineral production, at least in 2024. In San Bernardino County, there's over 90 active mine sites. Some of the substantial operations within the county would be MP Materials and their very large rare earth operation. Nearby, we also have Equinox Gold with the Castle Mountain project as well. So you do have some substantial world-class players also in San Bernardino. I think the real takeaway here is that we know and we feel that that San Bernardino is very pro-mining. The county is welcoming companies to do work, to do mineral exploration, development, and ultimately production work. We feel that this is a jurisdiction that does allow a world-class asset like our Calico project to be able to move forward. We do have the sense of strong local government support there as well. So if we just look at just digging into the project a little bit more, there's really two deposits that make up the resource at Calico. So the largest one by far is the Waterloo deposit. Waterloo is where all the measured and indicated resources lie. So that has 125 million ounces of silver in the measured and indicated category. Langtree, which is an on-echelon pod along the prolific Calico Fault Zone to the northwest. Langtree has a resource of 58 million ounces of inferred resources. Now, both of these silver deposits are near surface. They both outcrop up to surface, but by far Waterloo is the bigger of the asset. That one is presently our key project, and that'll be the one that we continue to move forward in project development. I think probably worth noting too is that the deposits themselves actually sit on private land with vested mining rights. There are surrounded by BLM ground in there, so that's what you're looking at on this map. The white areas of the project are BLM territory. The gray shading of which the deposits sit on is private land. So that will also help with our permitting story going forward. It's much easier to permit and build a mine on private land, we'll say, as say opposed to BLM. But having said that, we feel that the federal government is presently in a state where they're very, very pro-mining. Silver now being a critical mineral, there's every opportunity for Calico to be able to get on the Fast 41 track of designation, which would essentially streamline our permitting at all levels of government and shorten the timelines in order to develop the project as well. So just quickly, I want to show you a cross-section of what the Waterloo deposit looks like. So you get an appreciation, as I mentioned earlier. It's very shallow, so it outcrops right to surface. The deposit itself dips very shallowly to the southwest. There is zonation in there. We have barite more concentrated near the top of the silver mineralization, and zinc towards the base of the silver. But really, for us, it's all about what the silver deposit itself. That's the main driver of the project. So really the same story at Langtree as well, a cross-section showing what the Langtree deposit looks like. Again, near surface, it's shallow, it does outcrop up to surface. The better part of the resource is a little deeper down. So for us right now, the focus is going to be on Waterloo, the largest of the two silver zones. We'll also do continuous work at Langtree, but it's presently drilled at an inferred category. And so it will require further infill drilling to be able to boost it up into higher classifications of resource estimation, which would be required for advanced economic studies. But Waterloo is pretty much ready to go. Where are we in our timelines for work to be done at Calico? So we just completed our mineral resource estimate update, submitted that earlier this fall. As I mentioned, 125 million ounces of silver measured and indicated, 58 million ounces of silver and inferred. There's a small gold resource there. We feel that we can continue to expand on the gold, and of course with the critical minerals, barite and zinc in addition. So 2026, we plan to be busy at Calico on the Waterloo project, which will be the main focus. We anticipate doing a program in early 2026 that'll focus on geotechnical and metallurgical studies, and likely there will be an exploration program as well, focusing on the more newly acquired Mule claims, which are just to the east of the silver deposits, east of the Waterloo. So we've got a lot of ground there to explore yet. We feel there's new targets out there, so the exploration will be focused on basically discovering, upgrading targets, doing some drilling around the gold resource, and then project development will be more focused on the geotechnical and metallurgical components at Waterloo. Moving on to the Cinco de Mayo in Mexico. As I mentioned, this project is located in the state of Chihuahua, in fact, northern Chihuahua. There's a very prolific CRD belt. CRD is carbonate replacement deposits, so very famous, well-known types of deposits in the silver business. They tend to be high-grade silver, high-grade zinc, sometimes other base metals associated with it. The larger CRD deposits tend to be anywhere from 10 to upwards of 50 million tons, and some of them even a little bit more than 50 million tons. And that's where we find the Cinco de Mayo deposit. So Cinco de Mayo at the northern end of this prolific belt, we've already have a historic resource outlined at Cinco de Mayo of 12.5 million tons of high-grade mineralization. So we're looking at an overall silver equivalent grade of 385 gram per ton. About a third of that mineralization is in silver itself, and zinc providing the bulk of the mineralization. So really, it's a silver zinc deposit. Now, just having a quick look at CRD deposits, what they're all about. If you had a look at Cinco de Mayo, it would fit perfectly on a textbook type CRD deposit. So that's what this image is showing you. This is basically adapted from Peter McGaw's illustration of what CRD deposits are all about. They're, some people look at them as octopuses of mineralization that basically surround an intrusive stock. Now, the octopus part are all the tentacles, the arms of skarn mineralization that basically occur outwards of the intrusive stock. We have all these components of a major CRD deposit at Cinco de Mayo. Now, the upper Manto zone, where we have a historic drill inferred resource of 12.4 million tons at 385 grams per ton. You'll see that illustrated in this box here, the white square. Where we have substantial upside is in the chimney, which we feel are chimney feeders to the Manto mineralization. We do have a hit that's extremely spectacular called Pegaso. That looks to be a chimney type feeder zone, and we'll look at that on the next slide to get a sense of just how important we think Pegaso is all about. But and as well, the Pozo Seco near surface gold moly deposit would also be illustrated here in this textbook CRD drawing, and so we've got all components of this. Think of the red though being where we can still continue to grow. So there's lots of room for growth and expansion at Cinco de Mayo. It does have all the earmarks of being one of the most important, if not the most important, CRD deposit in Mexico. At least that's how we feel what it'll look like. And I think it's reasonable to make a comparison here of a more mature, large, very large CRD deposit called the Santa Eulalia West Camp. That's also in the state of Chihuahua. Now, this deposit has been basically started mining almost 300 years ago. So it's and there's of course more recently, in the last 50 years or so, it's had intensive drilling and mining. But essentially, you're looking at a CRD deposit that has been outlined at 3.5 kilometers strike length by about 1,000-meter depth. And within that area, the CRD has been outlined almost 50 million tons and at a grade of 335 gram per ton silver equivalent. Now, if we take that image and overlay that on top of what we've seen so far at the Upper Manto deposit, we're looking at a very, very similar strike length where we've outlined mineralization at the Jose Manto over about 3.5 kilometers of strike length. And with drilling, particularly with the Pegaso zone discovery, we've been able to outline similar, at least mineralization down to 1,000-meter depth. So the Upper Manto, where we do have enough drilling to put a resource estimate on, we've got 12.4 million tons at 385 gram per ton silver equivalent, so even higher than the Santa Eulalia deposit. So we have a higher grade, and there is the potential to add the significant resources. We've only got a single hole in the Pegaso zone. Looks like a chimney feeder to the overall Manto system. Pegaso on its own is a spectacular hit with strong mineralization over 100 meters, including a continuous interval of 61.6 meters that grades 349 gram per ton silver equivalent. Pegaso is outside of the present resource area, and yet its mineralization, the continuous mineralization is in the order of 5-6 times, even 10 times that of what we see in the typical Jose Manto lens. So I guess in summary there, we think that with drilling at Pegaso, more drill holes down there to expand this zone, see what we do, we think we're on track to be able to build a world-class CRD deposit similar to the one you'll see on the left side, perhaps even bigger, perhaps even higher grade. So it's early stages, but you really do get a sense of the the potential for growth at Cinco de Mayo. I'll just spend a brief minute here to look at the Pozo Seco deposit. It's the near surface. It's about 4.5 kilometers to the southwest of the Jose Manto mineralization. Pozo Seco is a high-grade moly and lower grade gold deposit. Well, and near surface. There's almost 450,000 ounces of gold outlined in the Pozo Seco deposit. Moly substantial as well, and in fact, one of Mexico's highest grade moly deposits. But for now, really the focus for us would be to do work, early stage work at the Pegaso and the Upper Manto zone. As I mentioned, this is an option agreement that we have with Pan American Silver. The first step is to retain social license on the ground. The project originally came from MAG Silver. MAG, of course, as I mentioned, was acquired by Pan American. But MAG had lost social license. Basically, they lost the confidence and the ability to work with the local ejido community. And that was about 13 years ago. So we've been in discussions, face-to-face discussions with the leadership of the ejido. We think 13 years later, the opportunities have substantially changed for us in Mexico on this property. They want the project to be able to go ahead. They're looking, our discussions back and forth are how do we get access down there? How can we build a partnership, a long-term partnership and access agreement where we're working with the local community? They're very receptive to the idea. We think we're gaining traction. Hopefully in early 2026, we'll be able to establish social license again, get access. The next part of the option agreement at Cinco would be to drill 20,000 meters of drill holes, worth of drill holes. That probably represents around, I don't know, say 30 or 40 holes, maybe mostly focusing on the Pegaso zone, but also expansion at the Jose Manto. So once we get the social license locked up, we get agreement, we'll be able to permit. We should be able to be drilling by Q2, Q3 of 2026. And towards the end of the year, we'd be in a position for the last term of the option agreement, which is to issue Pan American a 19.9% equity stake of Apollo Silver. And that will get us the full ownership for the Cinco de Mayo project. So, as I said, we're led by people that are, a very strong board and a management that's done this before. We've all been in these markets for a long time, great wealth of experience. And so I think with that, I'll hopefully be able to answer a few questions that the audience has out there. So let me read the first question here, and then I'll answer it. So, 2025 mineral resource estimate at Calico increased, contained silver, and for the first time formally quantified barite and zinc resources. What are the top 1 or 2 economic levers for this new mineral resource estimate that you think the market is still underappreciating? As I mentioned, I think Calico is really all about the silver. Now we have silver, we have zinc, we have barite, and we have gold. But by far the most important commodity there is silver. It is the primary driver, which means it's all about the price of silver. We're confident with the jurisdiction. We feel this is a jurisdiction that supports mining. They'll support this project. We think we'll be able to permit Calico. So I think what people may lose sight of is, just the impact of the price of silver for this resource. Now, we haven't done economic studies yet on the project. We're moving to that phase as we go forward. So I think the first step for us will be doing metallurgical work and geotechnical, and then that will be able to lead us to doing advanced economic studies, such as a pre-feasibility study in probably later 2026 or 27. So I think because there's been very little activity on this project over the last few years with the price of silver, wasn't very exciting, we'll say in 2023 and really even 24. It's been all about how silver's been performing in 2025. And I think once we start getting active, get eyes back on this project, I think the market will start appreciating, the size and the quality of this asset. Next question. San Bernardino has a long permitting track record, and you highlight strong local support for mining. What specific local or state level permits and studies are on your critical path over the next 24 months? And where do you see the biggest permitting risk? So as I mentioned before, we know that San Bernardino is a very progressive county with respect to mining. And really in California, it's all about the county level support that you get. Can you build a mine there? We absolutely know you can. I mean, you look at these major operations like MP Materials and Equinox Castle Mountain project in production, the Fast 41 being gained by Equinox Gold on that project. So we feel that the pathway forward, this is a place that we can build a project. For us, I think water is going to be one of the critical steps, being able to access water. It is an adjudicated basin, the Mojave Basin. So there is water available, there's groundwater, but you have to basically, you get granted a certain amount. And so there's a cost to getting water. And, we have to prove, first of all, that the economics of the project allow us to move it forward, and that we can pay for these additional costs. But water's probably, the most important critical path going forward. So we'll see. And by the way, we anticipate that, this is a project that could be granted a Fast 41 designation as well. And so we'll be working very hard in order to get that. What Fast 41 would be able to do is to help streamline the whole permitting process, put it all under a single umbrella. And I think importantly, that promises to shave a great deal of time off of the expected permitting timelines that are presently out there. So have you had any inbound strategic interest from producers or trading houses specifically around barite and zinc offtake linked to Calico? I think it's a little early for us right now at this stage at Calico. We've only just started to, quantify how much barite, how much zinc we have on the project. As I mentioned previously, silver is the main driver here. So for us, it's really all about silver. I think if we can show that the barite, for example, we can process it, it is a high enough quality, if we can garner a significant dollar per ton value off of it, and show that it is the finest quality barite, then I think it's likely you're going to have strategic buyers, start inquiring about that. Barite is on the critical list for the U.S. I mean, the U.S. imports somewhere between 75 and 80% of its barite. So it is definitely an important sought after critical mineral. But for us, we need to be able to prove up this, where the project's merits on silver first. And, and we'll also be considering for value added with barite, with potential offtake agreements, as we move forward through project development. Another question. Can you speak to the quality and horizon of the new institutional owners that came in on the recent financing, and how that might affect trading liquidity and the cost of capital going forward? So I think our shareholder list of institutions that have participated in financing here the finest quality institutions out there. You're looking at major assets, well respected, largest silver fund in the world's Jupiter. We've got Primevest Capital. I've read the list before of the number of strategic shareholders. How important are they? They're extremely important. They're very loyal. This is not the first time they've invested in the company. They believe in the people that have built this company. They believe in the assets that we have and our ability to be able to move forward. So I think bringing on these high quality institutional investors, also bring in retail investors that look at that want to see, well, what are these institutional smart, very institutional people, what do they know and how can they get involved too? So I think we see quite a good deal of retail fund as well, retail investors as well. So I think combined with that is why we see pretty good volume on the share price. I think it's certainly above the industry peers as well. While San Bernardino has a strong permitting history, what's Apollo's specific permitting strategy for Calico? And have you engaged with permitting authorities, and what are realistic permitting timelines? Yeah, as I mentioned, San Bernardino definitely has a strong history of permitting. We have some high quality consultants on our side, people that have actually worked for the government that are now working for us. They've worked for the county on that side, know all the players and all the processes involved in there. So I think we're backed by strategic people within the company that know the whole permitting landscape. We've sort of mapped out a roadmap that probably takes us over the next 4 or 5 years to be able to accomplish everything that we need on the permitting front. But I think the real upside potential is if we can garner FAST 41 categorization on this project. I think that has the potential to majorly streamline the whole permitting process. It typically shaves years off of the overall process, and this is a government that we have in place that's very supportive of mine development. So maybe the baseline study or case would be that it takes about 5 years or so of permitting to get to the finish line. With FAST 41, maybe you can carve that time in, by a third or a half, something in that order. How are you prioritizing capital deployment between Calico and Cinco? I think that's fairly easy right now. Until we get access agreement down at Cinco, there's really not a whole lot we can do down there. We know what we want to do. We would love to be busy down there. If we had an access agreement, we would absolutely be putting a very high priority on Cinco de Mayo. Until we get an access agreement, though, there's really no work on the ground that can be done. And so all of our field efforts at this point will be focused on Calico and how do we move Calico along that pathway through both exploration and project development. But as I said, if we can get an access agreement, we're we're very optimistic that we can do so in early 2026. Then we'll start diverting some of that resource and attention to development at Cinco de Mayo. We already have a country team in place down there. We've got all the players in there, both at the community, corporate, and the project level to be able to move it forward. We just need a green light in order to be able to do so. So look for us having a two-pronged approach on activities in 2026. But as I say, until we get an access agreement, there's not a whole lot we can do at Cinco de Mayo at the present. So I think with that, I'm going to maybe end the presentation, and thank you very much for your attention.